Yeah, I mean,
it's all gold. It's all gold.
It's all gold.
Guys, today's
I've
episode.
noticed everyone's really high on their prices. I've noticed
like
guys
120%.
have
It's
great
nuts.
stuff.
Let me give me 30 seconds. I'll kick it off, guys. I could already tell you, Luka Nation, this is going to be an episode for the ages. So I'll right off the bat, if you have kids in the room, maybe ask them to go to sleep because this is going to be a R-rated or at least a PG-13 rated episode. But it's going to be a ton of love, ton of excitement.
I brought my aim and flame.
Cage brought us aim and flame. We have Oahu Sports Cards.
My eyebrow. Oh my
God.
This guy
eyebrow's missing, bro. Your eyebrow's go.
Just kidding. Go for it, man. I apologize.
All right. So who do we have here? We have Oahu Sports Card. This guy's a collector. If you guys go to his page, Oahu Sports Cards, you'll see he invests in Holland modern cards. He has Babe Ruth. He has football. He has basketball. He's one of the collectors in the game you want to learn from. And he has his buddy Joe with him, who's actually at the Hofstra show as well. So this is a collector series. We're going to talk to people who are new in the hobby, who have been in the hobby for years, try to educate them, but not by telling them do this or do that. You know, we always say we want to lead a fish to water, right? We want to teach them strategy so people can think for themselves.
Dude, fish are
and by the way,
you don't lead a fish to water. The fish are already in water.
I think he meant horse, but
lead the horse to water.
You know the thing is,
there are some fish who don't really know that they're in the water. Yeah. So once you give them that information,
we have him going sideways. It's lead a horse to water and teach a man to fish. But we know what you mean. We know what you mean, brother.
Amazing. Oh, and by the way, Oahu Sports Cards is a longtime friend, or well, we might say ex-friend of Vegas Dave's. So we'll save that till the end. We'll talk all about that, the documentary or whatever that mockumentary basically is coming out that later. But first off, guys, Shawn, Joe, appreciate you joining the show. That's it. That's
we're happy to have you. Listen, so here we'll just jump right in. You guys, right before we started off, you told us, collecting wise, you jump from like show to show, right? You go from this show, you're sitting in Vegas as we talk right now. You were just in New York this past weekend. You'll be going to Dallas. After that, is that like the way of doing business now? Is that your business, or is this just fun? Like, how do we find ourselves now going?
Very niche. That's a very niche thing.
The big thing that I've seen from the shows, and this is probably a huge part of why I even bothered doing the shows, is I've noticed that when I go to a show, if I sell something to an attendee of that show, that's great, but that's not even my expectation. I don't even care if that happens or not. I'm really there just to do business with all the other dealers that, there's a lot of guys, for whatever reasons, they don't really do too much business because they're older or whatnot, but they don't do business through the mail or through social media. And so when I go to the shows, I'm able to sit down with those guys, say there's a lull in the show and they don't really have anybody at their booth. I'll be able to go over there and kind of find a bunch of stuff that I, basically think that I can make money on. Pick them up. And I've noticed, here's the big thing too. These shows, typically the trends that you see, the cards that get hot, the players that people start investing in, a lot of the time, those things actually start off at these shows. You've got a bunch of dealers who talk, they agree with each other on this or that. And then all of a sudden now those guys go out, they buy those cards, people see them posting about it, and it kind of starts this like a mini rush on those types of cards. But the bad thing about that too is when somebody doesn't have any knowledge about what's going on with the hobby, their belief in it is paper thin. And so, guy has 2 bad games, strikes out, 6 times out of 9 at bats. All of a sudden now they get real jumpy, start selling. And it starts this downward spiral because he starts selling. So this guy gets it cheap. And then the thing just starts tumbling. Mm-hmm. And really, back in the day, that wouldn't happen. People wouldn't literally treat their performance at a game like a stock ticker. They wouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction. And that's, to me, the biggest change that's the hobby scene, is that literally on a night-by-night basis, things change. And you saw that with Josh Allen. The first 2, I was guilty of that. The Philly show a few weeks ago.
September 21st.
On the Saturday, the day before the week 3 game of the season, I'm at the show and I've got this NT RP of Josh Allen that I bought from my friend Ricky at Texas Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Yeah. I've got it in my hand. I'm like, man, he looked really bad these first 2 weeks. I mean, they just don't look like they've got it. I'm like, am I going to gamble with this 60K and put it on the line? And maybe it goes down 30, maybe it goes up 30. And I sold it to this guy, Al. And the next day, I mean, you guys know what happened week 3. He had like 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing, and they went on this mini heater. Now that card's probably worth 100 G's. But that's the part of the hobby nowadays that I kind of don't really care for too much, because now it's literally nightly changes in the market, and it scares me, because if I'm having issues with it, can you imagine the guy who just got into the hobby 6 months ago because his friend showed him a card and kind of piqued his interest, and now he's getting into the hobby? I mean, you hear all these different people, all with kind of like their own little agendas. You know, I mean, you guys know this term pump and dump.
Yep.
I mean, it's bad.
Well,
Different perspectives, though,
Yeah.
on everything.
Could we take it back? I want to set the context, because I mean, we're going to talk about a variety of topics today, but if we could take it back, I want to hear from Shawn and Joe, maybe in like 60 seconds, or, you know, what's your origin story? How did you find yourself in the hobby?
It started when I was a kid. I mean, I was always that little kid. We used to have these shows put on by Kit Young in Hawaii. And so from when I was a little kid, I would just go to the stores, you know, buy packs, get the cards, and I would like literally hustle and sell them.
And are you a 90s kid or 2000s?
I am 44. So if
You're
you back
44.
up the math, I was a little kid in the mid 80s.
And I'm 25.
Yeah,
I just turned 25.
So when I was hustling these
Happy
cards,
birthday,
he was still, you know, a little spermy, probably swimming in the testicle, but he probably got some information from his dad even at that point.
I mean, it's crazy how like I started. I literally I got some cards from my dad. I was like 5 or 6 years old. I started going to these shows, started going to Walmart, feeling the packs, right? You would be able to feel the relics, you know, if a card was, if the pack was a little thinner, that had an auto. If it was a little thicker, you know, you'd have a patch card. And then I would go and I put it on my mom's eBay, like at 8 or 9 years old. Eventually I got to be about 12 or 13, and I didn't have a printer at home. I colored it in green crayon. I wrote $15 to mow your lawn, walked it up and down my block. I got one lady, took care of me the whole summer. Her name was Bonnie. The cards that I was buying was 2011 Topps Update Mike Trout cards, between $10 to $15 raw. That's all they were. And LeBron James Topps Chromes were only $60-65. That was a little too rich for my blood back then. So I used to have to get the OC ones that were only $40. Crazy, right?
Cards have come and gone. It's gone, like, I mean, it's gone off. I never would have thought. I mean, back in the day, I really put a lot of money into. I didn't really know when I came back in, like in the early 2000s, like what I would want to buy. So I figured if I just buy the best cards of the best players in each sport, I couldn't go wrong. So I put a lot of money into Jordan. LeBron was a rookie back then. I bought a bunch of LeBrons. I bought Gretzky. I'm a Yankees fan, so I bought a bunch of Mantles and Gary. I was really lucky when I was young. I had a bunch of money from hustling this and that. And so I had a run of pretty much PSA 7 and PSA 8, everything Yankee. So I had like a 51 Bowman, a 52 Topps, had the 33, 34, Babe Ruth, Gary. I mean, I had a lot, and that's kind of what.
Can I ask you something? So why did you? So if people don't remember, 2003, 2004, that time frame was when poker was becoming huge, right? It was World Series of Poker. Chris Moneymaker won.
That's
and
how
we'll get into that.
School was playing poker every day here in Vegas.
And why did you choose, you know, okay, so here I'm playing poker, probably go to the sports book a little. Did you see that sports cards were kind of, you know, similar, but it's an opportunity, you know, it doesn't go to 0 or 100. It's an investment, but using the knowledge you had?
It was really not too popular back then, I guess, with the general public. And so for myself, I saw it as a great way to park my money and get crazy returns because of what I was buying.
It was cool too.
I mean, how many things can you buy and invest in that's also something that you enjoy? I mean, stocks, real estate, they're great to make money. But if we can be honest, I mean, you can't hold your land. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to hold your title to your property? I mean, you really can't do it. Doesn't really interact with you and or your kids or your friends in a way that makes you happy or makes you want to invest in it more. Whereas cards, literally, I mean, like I said, we were playing Madden football. We're gambling I was gambling $3,000 to $5,000 cards on a 5-minute quarter Madden game, and
were you using Michael Vick? Were you using Michael Vick?
I was never. So I have certain things that I look for when I invest in players, and there's certain things that are like red flags for me. And it's served me really well. I mean, nowadays, actually, I have several kind of wealthy individuals that I do their sports card portfolios for, because nowadays, if you buy the wrong thing, you could literally lose 6-7 figures. I mean, you could really get screwed
quickly.
Yeah. So I have several guys actually. So I don't know how it happened, but I guess they were following me on social media. And I guess they would just kind of watch and see which players I was posting about. And I had like a couple of guys who messaged me like, hey, man, I've been following you. And it was kind of scary. Like, hey, I've been following you on social media for a couple of years and watching what you've been doing. And I guess they really enjoyed the picks that I made. And, we're going to talk about it more at the end, but like Mike Trout. So in 15, 16, 17, I was just all over it. I mean, I was buying as many Trouts as I could find. I just felt like good looking guy. Not pompous, not arrogant, really, really good with kids and families. I mean, he's kind of the kind of guy you'd bring home to meet your family and everybody would like him.
He lived with his parents his first couple of years in the league, and he's been with this girl since high school.
And yeah, he's one of those guys,
he's just one of those everything.
Those types of players are the kind of guys that I look for when I invest. They just have these certain qualities, and they don't have any of those red flags, because a player can be really, really good. But if he's like antisocial or a prick, say Barry Bonds,
A-Rod,
those kind of guys, I mean, they're arguably some of the best players, two of the best players in baseball, like top 10 players, top 5 players, you could argue, as far as position players. But their stuff will never, ever, ever be valuable because of either how they acted or conducted themselves, or the choices that they made, which in hindsight for them, they probably regret. So it's scary. For me, the market has changed to a point where you really have to be very cognizant of what you're doing, what you're buying, how you're spending your money. And it's kind of stressful because every day that goes by, your portfolio can literally go up or down, like playing penny stocks in the market.
I love the character conversation. We talk about that on our show pretty often. I mean, guys that I've invested in just, during small flips, I mean, like Devontae Graham was one of my guys I talk about just as a basketball guy. And I invested in him, before he broke out as a player and, 2 years ago with the Hornets, and made a lot of money on him because I read an article about him and his mom. How he was taking care of his mom, and like he's a mama's boy, like all. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like here's a guy, he's got a great relationship with his mother and the whole deal. So I understand what you're saying, and I mean the flip side to that, of course, is you got enough to worry about with professional athletes now, about injuries, about what else could derail them. You don't need to worry about investing in Deshaun Watson or Michael Vick or any of these other guys, where obviously the value can go down at any moment.
And it's crazy because I actually used to be a baseball guy.
Yep.
I really love baseball, but to be honest with you guys, nowadays, because of how the market looks at what people do, how the players play on a literally daily basis,
it's not the sport.
To be honest, baseball is by far is the highest risk sport, and given the choice of investing my money in baseball, basketball, football, and I was a guy. I bought Juan Soto when he was just going up to AA. I remember I think I messaged with you guys at the last Cow Palace show there in Frisco. This guy Alex had the Superfractor Bowman Chrome Auto 1/1 PSA 10, and I bought it off him for $11,000. I mean, I was really into baseball. I really thought Tatis. To be honest, I did not like Acuna. I didn't like how he played the game. I mean, I know he had fun playing the game, but he just seemed kind of like a prima donna to me, or like a entitled in a way. I really liked the way that Tatis played. He hustled his ass off.
Well, Shawn, what about so the guy next to you, Joe, kind of looks like Chris Bryant. I don't know if you've ever got that before, but he kind of looks like Chris Bryant, doesn't he? Why did Chris Bryant never get any love in the hobby?
I mean, it's what I would say with this is, I was actually going to touch on this after we talked about how Mike Trout, how it was how he connected in every category, and I'll keep it very short and sweet, because I know a lot of people are kind of going to say, well, it doesn't apply to everyone. So let me take that back real quick. The guy before that was Derek Jeter, right? But Jeter, 93 SP foil iconic card, right? But how many of those were produced? A lot, right? That was a mass production era. So a lot of people are going to say, okay, so you're saying Trout, so why isn't Derek Jeter stuff worth anything? So the biggest thing is, Jeter being how iconic he is, how many World Series, just a great overall player, great overall guy, but his value never carried. A lot of that has to do with how many are out there, right? What type of era that he played in. And also, if you guys have noticed this, the vintage market is really never really jumped, only in certain cards, very small tier of cards. But then you have these modern guys that are brand new, haven't proven anything, and they go for more than a Mickey Mantle card. It's honestly insane. But back to your point with Chris Bryant.
You know what? You guys know why he didn't go up in value?
Hurt. Yeah. Injuries. We talk about it with Judge.
We were just talking about
Judge is my favorite player, most underrated player. In my opinion, I mean, I love the guy. I love his story.
Is this Cage? Is this your long lost cousin here?
Huh?
Maybe.
These are all Cage's favorite guys. Cage invested so much into Judge too.
I was telling
Judge
him,
has a great story too.
So if I can give any advice to people who are listening to the podcast, if I were them, I would get rid of my Trouts faster than you can say what. Right now, I promise you, Trout is probably one of the worst investments in sports cards that you could possibly make. Mainly because when you buy his stuff, it's extremely expensive. 4 years ago, there was a guy named David Awanchu who fashioned himself Vegas Dave. He was not, back then, we were not really investing heavy in sports, but I saw this guy Trout doing his thing, and especially after he won his second MVP in 2016, I was just like, man, this guy is 24, 25 years old. He's got 2 MVPs. He plays the game with passion. His hair is on fire. He was on track to be a top 5, almost in I think it was 10 or 12 of the top
Mickey
categories.
Mantle was his comparison. I'm sure you remember. Every time they would come up, it would be Mickey Mantle.
He was on track to be one of the best ever. Mm-hmm. And so that's why literally I was telling Dave, you have to buy as many of this guy's cards as you can find. Buy all the big ones. Now, obviously, back then, I didn't think that they'd become $1 million cards.
Well, didn't he sell one for $1 million? Didn't he have a superfractor?
Yeah, the 1-on-1.
So the backstory to that superfractor of Trout was on eBay for a year or two before he bought it. And the reason why I know this is the year before he bought it, I was trying to buy it. The guy, I believe, was in Asia, and he had it on eBay for $500,000. And I sent him an offer for $210,000. He declined it. I sent him an offer at $220. He's like, I guess that's a good price. I'm not too sure. Long story short, I think I offered him $240,000. He agreed that he would sell to me off eBay, and it fell through. And he never posted it back up on eBay. It just kind of fell off. And then I think 6 or 8 months later, he put it back up. And I told Dave, I said, hey man, I tried to buy it from this guy. I couldn't get it. If you can get it, buy it. And at the time, Dave was buying up all the oranges that we could get for him. And so I guess he offered the guy, I want to say he offered him $350 or something like that. And the guy finally bit, flew down, met Dave in person. Dave literally gave him a duffel bag full of cash. He took the card, and I think that was it. That was one of the purchases that I did not help him with. Mainly because I was pissed off and in shock that he actually got a hold of the guy, and the guy agreed to sell it.
Well, I would say you helped him more than you realize. I mean, you didn't finalize your portion of it at $240 or $250, and you let the card be out there for Dave to buy. You helped him more than you realize.
Yeah, I mean, I was very upset. I was literally willing to sell my house to buy the card. That's how much belief I had in the player. But things have changed since then. It's the same thing and getting back to Chris Bryant. Yeah, he was on fire. He was ready to take off. I remember I had a PSA 10 Chris Bryant refract Bowman auto, the 2013, I believe. The first 14, one. 14. No, 13 was his first card.
13 was the first one. Then 14.
So the 13, yeah. I had one that was worth maybe $1,000 or $1,500 as a PSA 10. I remember that was when PSA had first started grading autographs. I got the auto grade added on. It was at that point, it was a Pop 1 PSA 1010. I sold it on eBay for $4,500. I tripled my money on the card just because the auto was graded. But right after that, he just became injured. Trout has been getting a pass for his injuries for like 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen that
ever.
Most players, you have 1 or 2 seasons in a row, you get hurt and like
Judge,
or you suck for 1 or 2 years, and you have to, like Bregman, he had to play out of his mind good to overcome the fact that when he first came up, he sucked. And then his prices actually went skyrocketing. I remember his oranges got to like 10 to 15,000, I want to say, and then they cheated. And
well, look at Harper. Look how much money went into Harper.
Yeah, he's another guy that sucked.
But Harper is not like I played ball in college myself. I know a lot of guys that played with him. He's not the nicest guy, so I always stayed away from Harper. Right? For his prices, I always chose Trout.
His attitude with people, the way that he played the game, it hurt his value, and I don't think it's ever come back. Never. I know that he signed a contract with the Phillies. He didn't allow himself any outs out of it, so he's there for 10 years unless they trade him. I think he tried that to try to change the perception of who he was as a person, as a player. But as you can see nowadays, based on the values of his cards, nobody believes him.
And he had a great year.
My co-host,
I think guys listening right now.
So my co-host coined this term called cardboard relevant, right? How if somebody is relevant and then they lose relevance, it's that whole inertia thing, right? It's so much more difficult to get relevance back that it's almost a lost cause.
First impression, right? First impression is always it's so hard to overcome people thinking you're an idiot or you're an asshole. On that.
Well, I want to ask you about that. I want to shift to NBA and guys that are listening. So we're going to spend half of today's episode. We're going to be talking about kind of go player by player. There's going to be so much value in listening to the nuance. And then in the second half, we'll talk about the role influencers have in the hobby, because we did touch on it a little bit and we'll get back to it. But Zion. So yesterday we did an episode and I said Zion is the most dangerous investment right now in the game. I think if you don't sell off in the next 1 or 2 weeks, there's going to be a whole influx of sellers, because I think this next season coming up is going to be kind of a lost season for him. And there's a lot of money in him, and people are going to want to use that money elsewhere. What are your guys' takes on Zion?
He's very high risk, and I say that, and
it's low reward in my opinion.
I actually have a pop 2 immaculate RP of his Gem Mint, and I actually split that card with one of my investors, and we are very. I don't want to say scared. We're very apprehensive, because when the season starts, people don't really realize that he's not going to be playing come the start of the season. And it's going to be his rookie season, take 2.
Yep. You remember what happened when he finally came back, though, from his rookie from the knee injury? Remember that first game? Remember that first quarter? I mean, it didn't matter if you were holding his cards.
Him shooting 3 was just the weirdest thing out of that. That was really strange. And he never did it again.
He never did it again.
He never did it again. I was just like, wait, who's this?
And the fact that he came back out of shape, that was the biggest thing with him, right? He was back, he was healthy, now he's out of shape.
He is so close to becoming that guy with that he's always hurt. You know, you can't rely on him. He was arguably that guy. I mean, he erased a lot of that perception with his, ending the season, but then he set up, right? The last few games he hurt something or
Yeah, and I'm worried that he's going to have the type of year where they nurture him, right? They don't want to force him back. He's young. They don't want an injury like a metatarsal to re-break. I think this is going to be a lost season. Let's flip it. Who in the NBA or in the NFL excites you? To me, I think Giannis is so undervalued given the stage of his career. He reminds me of that Trout, 2 MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, 26 years old, such a bright future. Curious, what are your guys' takes? Shawn, Joe, who are you looking at?
He knows who I'm going to say, so let him go.
Yeah, so, like, Giannis, hey, so I understand people are excited. They won the championship. But I think we can all agree that a lot of things have to break right for them to win. If you had run that back 10 times, I think literally they win the championship once, maybe twice. The reason why I myself...
If Kyrie doesn't sprain his ankle, they're not getting out of that series. No way.
Yeah. I mean, and this is just my opinion. I mean, take it with a grain of salt. But I never invest in players who have glaring weaknesses. And in the NBA, everyone is about the closers, right? I mean, Durant's another prickly character. He's been fighting what people think of him. Because sometimes he cares too much about what people say, and then he replies to their blasting him, and it just turns into a total shit show for him, right? And he has to go, oh yeah, I had a burner. I mean, it was really bad for public perception for him. But I personally don't invest in him because he's not a closer. You can never be a closer unless you can shoot free throws. You just can't. And I think for me, his sports card prices are going to pay when they're in some playoff series and it's game 6 and the other team is playing the foul game and they have to pull Giannis out of the game so that they can have the best chance.
Let me take this a different way, right? Even if you love Giannis, right? Even if you think Giannis is the greatest on earth, right? So, and Andrew likes to say he thinks Giannis is undervalued, right? I like to level set with people, right? I like to make sure that our listeners who have only been in this hobby for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, and they've seen the Giannis as high as $7,000. They got his Prism PSA 10, right? $6,500, $6,800, $7,000, and now down under $2,000, right? You know, for that PSA.
Well, a famous influencer sold me a box with a Giannis for $7,000.
Possibly. But we happen to have somebody here who was investing in and buying Giannis cards back in 13, 14, 15, 16. What were the Giannis cards going for? Tell us your Giannis story.
So my Giannis story. So it all starts when I was, it started a little before that, but I was in California. I played ball out there. I'm originally from Cleveland, right? I would always go out and I would graph, right? So I would go home. I would go to Tower City. During the month of December, I would use that as time to get extra money, right? So I never had to really work. I would use, going to get autographs, and I had a ton of people that knew that, hey, I would go get autographs, $150 for a ball. I go buy the ball for $25 that I would save up and get merchandise credits for gifts from my parents or birthdays. I would go buy these basketballs, and I would go get them signed down there. So I remember when I would go wait for Giannis, I would be the only person there, right? Granted, remember, this is 2016. This is December of 2016. I am the only person there.
He's not Dwight Howard Jr. yet, right? With a humongous shoulder.
I'll never forget. He walks off the bus. It's like
nicest guy in the world.
It's like 3:30 in the morning. Okay, it's freezing. It's Cleveland. It's snowing. Not happy. Walks off. Big smile. I pronounced his name and I said Giannis, right? And he at that time spoke very broken English, and the way that he talked was so soft, right? And he said, "You know my name. Everyone calls me Giannis," right? And he sat there and he signed 5 balls for me. I didn't have any cards at the time because cards, they weren't worth anything to get signed. It was always balls, make memorabilia, jerseys, balls. But getting back to his cards, I was buying his Prism. I mean, I still have on eBay. I look at it all the time. In 2016, I was buying his Prism autos, $40 raw. His bases were $20 raw. His gold standard still sealed on card RPAs vertically were $150, right? His back then there was no thing as basically colored prisms, right? People didn't like the colored prisms. It was all about autographs. So his RPAs, his horizontal, vertically, you're talking $100, $120. One of my favorite cards were, I believe it was the Spectra, right? And it was a green. It was a nice color match. I always was big into color matches. I kind of hit that at the very right time. I started,
and it had the full length auto, right? He signs it looks like a TA.
So that was the G, and then it went on, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just a little squibble that he did. Even when he signed back then, he did kind of the whole thing. But his cards were $100, $120. And that's why, we talk about it all the time. We have a really hard, very messed up perspective, right? Because I look at a guy like Giannis and I'm like, man, $100, $120, $150. So that's where I see him, right? And then you just mentioned, you see it at the 7,000 level. And then, before we hopped on, I was telling you guys how in the fall of, I believe it was 2018, October, November, I was calling my buddy and PSA 10s were $80. And I told him, by the time you sell them in February or March, I remember it vividly like it was yesterday, you could sell them for $150. And his comment back to me was, why would I put out 800 to only make 700 in a 3 or 4 month span? That's not a correct ROI. Well, I said, you know what? Sell as many as you can, get your initial back, and the rest are free. And that's kind of how, from a young person's perspective, how I built it, right? I would spend, because let's be honest, no one really has a lot of money when you're young, right? So you work your way around that. If you have $300 or $400, you buy a guy, you wait for it to uptick. You got to play the wait game. You sell what you can sell. If you really like the guy, put it in a corner, forget about it, and then go reinvest the $300 or $400, right? Facebook groups were huge when I was younger. So I would go in those Facebook groups. I would go to card shows. I would see people would pay good money. Evan Longoria. People used to love Evan Longoria, right? I used to get the base cards for $2 or $3, and I would sell them in these Facebook groups for $8 or $10, right? Not a crazy like margins you're talking. I mean, I would use I think it was 39 or 44 cents for a stamp back then. Tracking wasn't that big of a thing. But, you know, you could make $5 here, $6 there, and you add that up, you buy 5 or 10 cards, and all of a sudden, you know, you're 13, 14, even 15, 16 years old, and you're making 50 here, 50 there, and you're not spending a lot of money, right? Your parents are covering everything. You don't have a car, you know, you're not paying for food. So,
and I was biased on Giannis. Like I did love Giannis. I have a friend, Joel Valent. I don't know if you guys have done business with him, but he's like the most hardcore Milwaukee Bucks fan I've ever seen in my life. He's from Wisconsin. And so I've watched as Joel, because Joel's been in the hobby for a long time. He would kind of always tell me about all these Giannis cards. I remember I was at the Chicago Sports Spectacular maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And I think that's when the very first rush of people to try to buy Giannis cards first happened, because people are like, oh, we need to get these Giannis silvers. And I remember they were like a few $1,000s. And I was like, you guys are crazy. You guys are spending a few $1,000s on Prism silvers, PSA 10s of this guy. He can't even shoot.
No auto either, no ink.
And that's why I never bought him. Like, this guy can't shoot. And I mean, I think today, he shoots threes in the low to mid 30%.
He's getting better. But guys, so let me just backpedal, because this is an important moment. And we do a daily show. So every single day for the last 468 days, we've come on here and we talk and we share. What we try to help people. And there was a really important nuance there, right? So you said, why would I shell out $800 to make $700, right? Your friend said that.
Yeah.
I hope this is a lesson that our new listeners and people that are new in the hobby learn. Any of you guys want to take a guess? If you start with $1,000 and you double your money, how long will it take you to get $1 million?
Well, how often are you doubling it?
Yeah, how often are you buying and selling?
No, how many doubles? Just how many doubles do you need?
Oh, okay. Not how
You
long.
want to do math? That's horrible.
Like, 100 doubles, 500 doubles, more than that.
No, it actually
way less than
really
that.
Big. Yeah, it gets big really quick, and that's actually a lesson that I try to tell.
10 doubles. 10 doubles. You have to have 10 bets. So just real quick, Shawn. You guys are talkers. I like you guys a lot.
That's not
10 doubles if you start with $1,000. And it's so important to reset our expectations over this last year where things have gone parabolic, to understand that, guys, just hit doubles. Find good plays. Be what seems like conservative. You're 10 doubles away from 1,000 to $1 million. Sorry to cut you off, Shawn. I just wanted. We're value driven. Remember, we get about 1,000 listeners, 2,000 every day. It's about them.
Because we're value driven, let me ask this, because these guys are smart and they bring it's more than just 18 months or 24 months of this. You know, when you look at it now and you see, you know, someone like us is looking at Giannis and saying, wow, you could buy those Giannis cards cheap compared to where they were, and he's going to have a great year and he's going to be awesome and you name it. And you're looking at it saying Giannis is 50 times what it was when I paid for it. It was a bargain when it was $100 for the auto. It's not a bargain now. Well, you're still making money. You're still in the hobby. You're still going from Dallas to Vegas to Hofstra to wherever else it's going to be, right? So without getting into the trade secrets, I mean, I don't want anybody cutting into your money. This is my money. When you fucking my money, I don't like nobody messing with my money, right? So I understand, right? So, so what's the play? If it's not Giannis and it's not that stuff, like, you know, is it trying to find the next big thing? You know, were you guys on the Marvel Fleer PMG cards, which have suddenly steamed up, right? Because, and the reason why I asked this is it'll lead us into the last half hour of this, is when people are in this for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and they've come in with everybody telling them, get in, the returns are great. You're going to 10x your money. I bought these LeBrons in 2018 for $1,000. They went to 40. Yeah, they're now down to 15, but still that's 15x your money. Like, it's crazy money. You know what they do is they don't win right off the bat, right? They lose. They're putting this money in, they're expecting these huge returns, and the next thing they do is they roll into, well, let me see what this guy's doing. Let me follow this. This influencer just held up this card and said that this is the way to go to make money, and I'm going to follow those. And you wind up getting into a buy high, low, sell low kind of scenario, which is
funny, Cage.
Yeah.
In 2000, 2, 3, when Bodog became really, really popular, the same thing happened in sports betting, where a lot of new people came in and they started buying plays. They started going to influencers to be like, how do I make money? So it actually has so many parallels.
People should buy my plays. I was 9-2 against the spread yesterday.
That's right. What
I
not
hit- I
every
hit-
Sunday, join in.
I had a crazy one when we were in Philly. Oh man, that's a story for another time.
Yeah, I mean, well, going back to like helping the people, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they hold on to their assets too long. Nobody wins. Like in baseball, you hit three. If you hit the ball 3 times and strike out 7, you pretty much are going to go to the Hall of Fame.
True.
It's not easy. I mean, I've been investing in cards for like 20 years, and I don't win every single choice. I mean, there's certain things that happen that are out of your control, injuries, domestic issues. I mean, you've got all these things, but two of the biggest mistakes they make. Number one, they hold too long on an investment thinking, well, I'm going to get it back. He'll just turn it around. You're not going to win every play. You got to set certain boundaries for yourself. So like when I take on investors, I go through a few questions that I ask them to kind of gauge, pun intended, where they're at. I mean, number one, what is your risk tolerance on a scale of 1 to 10? What is your investment timeline? How much money do you have to invest? Like there's all these questions that I ask. And once they answer those questions, it basically literally tells me what kind of sports investments I should put them into and which ones I shouldn't. Another thing I tell them is don't try to extract every single penny. That's the biggest thing I see at these shows. You got all these young kids with their tables thinking, okay, I set up, I got my table, I got my cards, I'm going to make $1 million. But the problem is they're there, the card's worth $1,000, they're trying to sell it for $1,200. And then you got me in the corner, I got the same $1,000 card, I've priced it at $900 or $850. And I look at these kids afterwards, I'm like, look, man, I understand that you want to get max money for your cards, but you gotta, it's like a card. 90 cents on the dollar if you bought it for 70 cents, bank that 20 because a bird in the hand, 2 in the bush, and move on to the next investment. A lot of these people, they're trying to get maxed out. I'm like, look, dude, if you can sell your card for 100% of what it's worth, but it takes you a month, and I get 85 or 90% on my investment, and I flip the card 6 times in a month, who makes more money? And they just don't understand that because they have an emotional connection to their cards. And that's why when I started to be a dealer full time, the first thing I did, guys, not only did I do it to get me more working capital, but it was to kind of make me heartless when it came to the hobby that I love. I sold all my PC cards.
I was just going to ask that. Do you have a PC? Because from what you're talking about, you can't.
I sold all of it because if I can, I mean, they're like my kids. Not to make it sound like a bad analogy, but if I can sell my kid, I can sell anything. If I can sell my PC cards, my roots, these were my cherished treasures. I'd rather you shoot me than you take my cards. If I can sell those, I can sell anything. And so now I am I want to say cold and calculating, but I'm all business oriented. All these cards to me don't have a name. They have a risk factor. They have their profit margin, and that's it. Anything else really doesn't come into play for me when I'm trying to do what I do, and which is, provide for my family and take care of what I got to take care of. But those are the biggest mistakes. And I see every young dealer at these shows making them. And I wish they would listen to me, but I mean,
Shawn, the answer is probably both, but like, what do you say to, half the people or some people in the hobby are like, this is a hobby. It will always stay a hobby. It shouldn't be a business, and we don't really want it to be, right? Listen to collectors. And then some people are like, I want to make a living off of this. I want to flip. I enjoy the money making. How do those two, are they at odds with each other? Can they work together?
Yeah, I think so.
Unfortunately, the days of this being a hobby,
it's over.
They're in the rearview mirror. It is now, it just costs, the barriers to entry have gotten really high to this hobby. You have to pay like $1,000, $2,000 for like a box of cards. That was $100 just a few years ago. I mean, the kids can't afford to play this game anymore. It's all adults. And if it's not an adult, it's a kid, then it's an adult who pays for his kid to play the game. And so unfortunately, those types of things have to be factored in. Even if they want it to be a hobby, a lot of times you're putting so much money into this thing now just to have a decent collection. that whether you like it or not, you have to have at least a little bit of a business-oriented approach to it. Otherwise, truly, if the money doesn't matter to you, you're going to be losing.
You're going to get killed.
Quite a bit of money.
And I personally think we're at a point in time where there's just too much put into this, right? I think we've already gotten to that point. You know, we've been past that point that there's too much already in the middle here, right? There's way too much money that for it to just go poof, right? And a lot of people keep saying like, Dave, poof.
The market is driven by a very few people, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And
so let's talk about that, right? You're talking
scary.
about I
That's
mean,
scary.
Would you say what, 20 to 20 people?
There
I would say
there
there's
are
20 to
like,
30 big hitters that really influence.
I used to
this market.
only sell huge cards, but the problem when I went to shows is that everybody would just blow their mind looking at my stuff, but nobody would buy it.
And the mid-tier stuff that moves.
Yeah,
that you
so
make your
I
ROI
basically had to redo my inventory and get rid of all my big stuff and break them down to cards anywhere from like 500 to like maybe 10,000 so that people could actually afford to buy what I had. Because it's great to go look at my limited logos, LeBron, Gem, right? But I mean, who's in this fork back then? Who's gonna fork out $65,000 to buy it off of me? I mean, my target audience was very, very narrow. And you know what? I want to say that now that's changed. There's a lot more guys with big money who are buying into the hobby, but the amount of big guys who buy and influence people to me hasn't really grown proportionally with the amount of people who are just buying stuff to buy as an investment. Because there's a difference, right? There's guys who buy and hold, and there's guys who buy, hold, and people know that they have, and people know why they bought, and people know when they sell.
Yep.
And so those are the people.
So what you're saying is like there's these guys who come in, you know, they buy, you know, a big card, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna add my own personality to it, my own profile, my own following, and that will kind of create, you know,
Only
my
certain
500
people can do that.
You
Only
gave me
certain
you
people
gave me
can
a
do that.
really good segue. So when I told Dave to buy all the trouts,
I get paid to do this now. I can't believe it. You know, I don't understand why I do.
one day they'll pay me too. I mean, they'll find value in what I'm doing. You know, he's the only
You
one
haven't
who
talked this
gets
whole episode.
you guys have noticed though, as soon as Dave started buying all the oranges for 7,500, 125,000, other people with money, herd mentality. You know, at Costco, you see everybody crowded around something and they're looking. Well, what do? You go over there and you're like, I want to see too.
Yeah,
and all
I
of a
want
sudden,
to-
you got all these
I want
rich
to-
guys going, I want to buy what Vegas Dave bought because, well, that's got to be fucking cool.
Gary,
I
Right?
want
did the
the
same
Hickory Farms sausage on a toothpick too. Hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I mean,
I want it.
you're everybody, whether they admit it or not, everybody wants to hang out with the cool kids.
Well, I like to
Everybody-
say nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. That's what I like to say. But you're
Exactly.
At
right, man.
whatever
I mean,
cost.
And so what happened was after he purchased all those oranges and he set those price points, because he was overpaying big time for some of them because the guys did not want to let him go. And he was like, okay, well, everyone's got a price. And he would basically just keep going up and up and up until they said, okay, I'll sell it. But what happened was all the other trouts below it slowly but surely started to fill up to the point now where those values were in line with the graph as far as valuation of cards up and through the orange and the red. And so that happens with everything. It's really scary. I don't know how much you guys want me to delve into like the elephant in the room and the dirty little secrets of the hobby, because I know
listen,
a lot about this.
without crazy with names and whatnot. I mean, I'd love to hear about it because it's one of those things we talk about, right? It's there are people who have influence, right? And I think that one of the scariest parts of the hobby is that people who have gotten into it, they just do that. They look at, okay, well, if this person tells me to buy it, I'm going to buy it. And I think we wind up in a cycle where that person may be talking about these particular cards because they already bought them, right? And then now there's a run up, the price is already high, and then average Joe gets in and buys the Giannis PSA 10 at $6,000 or $7,000, and then they're just holding it, writing it down until it's only worth $2,000.
One of the two biggest mistakes they can make, and that's the problem. When these influencers do buy things, they've got pretty much two different ways of looking at it. The first one is, I bought 50 Giannis silver PSA or whatever card they bought.
Whatever,
50.
yeah.
I want to manipulate people who follow me so that I can get the value up to them. I'm going to sell them.
Right.
Or it's a guy who is truly a nice guy. He bought 50. He believes in the player, and he's going to do them as a long-term hold. The problem is that when people are watching them or following them on social media, They don't know that he's buying them with a long-term hold in mind. They don't know that he has a significant amount of belief in the player, and he has a belief in why the player will then become more and more valuable. They don't know any of that. And so when he buys those 50 and starts this gravy train of people buying all these cards, the card goes up. Well, the guy's like, well, let's say I buy 50 or something. Well, I know the guy is not that great, but I feel like in 3 years he'll be good because I've seen him in his videos working on his game. I know what he's doing with his trainers. You got inside information, which in any other hobby would get you arrested. In this hobby, everything goes. And so you know something that nobody else knows, and that's why you're buying this guy. Well, the other guy doesn't know that. And so when he buys it with no belief, and all of a sudden the season goes and the guy's not doing like what the other guy knows he'll be doing in 3 years. He's not doing it right now. The guy gets scared, no belief, sells the card, and it just literally cuts him out at the knees as far as the hobby, and it starts this downward cycle of the values because then
it happened with Tyler Herro. It happened with Tyler Herro, frankly.
Oh, exactly what happened. When I saw my friends buying his NTs during his playoff thing, I said, "What in the hell are you doing?
You're buying him at the peak. The kid couldn't.
You're buying hype, and the guy has almost nothing behind it to substantiate the buy."
A good haircut.
No, this is not, but that kid was a party animal.
Yeah,
he was out in the. I'm not gonna say what I heard, but that dude was doing things that are not conducive to being in the best shape and in the best condition that a top athlete should be in.
When we started this podcast, it was kind of amazing.
I like Chick-fil-A. Is he eating a lot of Chick-fil-A?
When we started this podcast, it was July of 2020. So it was right before Bubble Hero. And I watched him because I remember the Sixers went to overtime against the Heat. And I was like, this guy's cold-blooded. He's like Tito Cruz from Coach Carter. Instead of getting the layup, he pulls up for three. You remember that shot?
Yeah.
And I was like, guys, in the bubble, he's at home. He's right in Florida. This Heat team's going to be good, and they're going to give the Bucks a run for their money. So I gave the play, and we don't do plays. We do like a watch list, go and do your own research type of thing. I said, take a look at him because this guy's going to show out in the bubble. But what happened was my name was associated to Tyler Herro when he already went off. And his card prices were plummeting. And Cage, how many times did people in our audience were like, Andrew, stop talking about Tyler Herro. Does this guy know about anything else?
So he's going to give a Tyler Herro play again. It's going to be another Tyler Herro episode.
But to answer your question about the rabbit hole of your question about the rabbit hole or the elephant in the room in the hobby, man, my mission or my vision with this podcast was a foundation of what I was raised on. So I'm an Eastern European, I'm a Ukrainian guy, and we argue a lot in our family. But at the end of the day,
I get that whole thing.
Pravda is our favorite word. Pravda. It means truth. So my commitment with this podcast is to truth, right? Like we're never going to sell our content. I said that from day one. I'll say that now. If I'm so good at investing and I'm so good at understanding the market, why do I need my community to pay me money? So to answer your question, elephant in the room, my goal with this isn't to badmouth anyone, is so that the people listening learn and get the truth. That's it, right? So they can make their own decisions so they don't have the wool over their eyes.
It's kind of like as a few good men, you can't handle the truth. A lot of these truths are going to shock the hell out of people, but I think it will really open their eyes to what really influences when sports collectibles shoot up and why they shoot down. Because there's nothing worse than investing in something that you don't understand. I always tell people, stay in your lane. Mm-hmm. You find one thing that you're really, really, really good at in life, and you just do that thing over and over again until you're rich. And that's the same thing with sports cards. I see people who really don't know anything about the sport. I know guys who play baseball who can't shoot a basketball worth a lick. But yet you're spending 5 figures on basketball cards. Do you even know why you're buying them? And it's not so bad when it's a retired player, because that's almost idiot proof unless you're buying a big upswing like Jordan when his documentary came out, right? For the most part, those are safe. It's blue chips. But when they're buying Tyler Herro, my buddy bought a National Treasures gem for $30,000. And when he told me, I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, what are you doing?
You can just look at a guy and see that that's not the direction.
He sold it a month later for less than half. I'm like, bro.
Respect, though. Cutting losses is a big lesson that needs to be learned, because that 15 can get you back to 30 faster than that.
Exactly.
Really quick if you get into something real good. But they just won't. Some people just refuse to lose. It's like, dude, get it through your thick skull. In this hobby, if you do it as an investment, you're going to lose. It's just like sports betting. You just got to you guys got to win more than you lose, and you'll be fine.
So
what do we hear all the time? We hear.
What's that?
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I was gonna say what we hear all the time is yeah, I'm gonna be really high on that because I paid extremely strong and I'm gonna wait, right? Do you have a crystal ball, right? I don't tell them that, but in my head I'm like, do you have a crystal ball that you're rubbing that it's gonna go back to what you paid, so now you can get out of it? It's not how it works, right? A card is worth what it's worth, and a lot of people try to sell cards, and I understand it, but a lot of people try to sell.
It's one thing if you have a belief,
right?
It's another thing if you're just like, well, I'm going to hold it and I'm really high because I paid high.
I paid high.
It's like, homie.
Hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy.
That's like buying a Beanie Baby.
It just sold for $6,000. I want 10, right? And there's 3 or 4 more on there. My biggest thing is, and this is going to go to the audience that's new in the hobby, or you don't even have to be new in the hobby. Maybe a lot of people, I see them make this big mistake. They come up to your table. Look, these are the comps, right? Say you have I'll use one of the cards that I bought. A guy that I really like is Trae Young, right? I think he's very undervalued. I think his team is very good. I thought that what he did last year to the New York Knicks, that's something that, he's he's a little bit of a villain, but he's a good guy. He's been with the same girl for a long time, respectable kid anyways.
That's agreed.
Purple hobby out of 75. There's one on eBay right now for
Prism,
right? PSA 10. There's one on, I think the pop report on that is, I believe it's 26 or 16.
Cage sold one of those in all time. You didn't?
No.
I sold the red. I still have
the red to Sasha T. Gotcha.
The red. Okay. I have the red, right? So if you go on Sasha's YouTube video at the National, I bought it for $3,500. And a lot of people were laughing, right? If you go to his National,
that's
right?
Cage's card.
I sold mine. Right? I sold a bunch of reds for $3,000.
He sold his at the National, right? And I'm running around because I see Sasha, to get sidetracked here real quick. I'm running around. And I'm like, where the hell's this guy? I gotta find this guy. I gotta find him. I'm trying to call him. He's not answering. I go up to Jamil with Millie Pops. I'm like, yo, call Sasha. I know he's gonna answer for you. Get him over here. I got his $3,500. I tried to give him 33. Long story short, I ended up buying the card, and I turned to my buddy and I'm like, dude, this is probably like an 8 to 10K card. Oh, well, no, it's not. This, that. All right. My thing behind it, Luka blue, right? 65,000 PSA 10. Okay. Trae Young 3,500. Tell me that Trae Young, quick math, 5-6% of a Luka? No, right? Should be about 20%. It still hasn't caught. I saw one sold the other day for $10,000. I saw one that's on auction right now at 7,100. It's only been a few months. So back to your point, if you can double up or you can park your money somewhere good where you see undervalued, but not only seeing the player, but seeing his team and the direction of everywhere that player is going, there's still great plays to be made, right? But the main thing was with that card, and what I was going to get to on the purple.
Yeah, the purple.
The purple is, there's one on eBay, and there's very few to ever been on eBay. I think there's like none to have ever sold. So if it sells for 14, right? I picked mine up for, I believe, 7,000. I'm into it for 7, but I'm really not into it at 7. I got it at 7 value. I'm probably into it in the middle 4s, right? Once that card's gone, now the demand is going to be there. So don't go up to somebody and say, well, look, it sold for $10,000. I'll do 9,000. That doesn't work on niche cards like that. And that's where a certain point in the hobby where you move to the next level and you move to the next tier.
That's where our buddy Bobby's at. So
yeah.
Can I pause real quick? Real quick? Cage, there was a lot that happened there. Do you want to say anything about that deal with Sasha and how all that worked? Any
No. The only thing I'll say is that the red is at a $299 and the blue is a $199.
Correct.
So don't do the straight Luka, 25% there, obviously it's a low, but it's color match. But yeah,
Fine,
but
I'll go different direction.
It's nice when the color match is $199 instead of $299. No, I mean, listen, Sasha was great, man. I mean, I left the National with, with a curiosity in my brain. I think I did a Google search of, domestic flights. How much cash am I allowed to bring on an airplane? And the answer is as much as you want, which was good for me because.
Have you ever seen Wolf of Wall Street? We could saran wrap it to your body.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that movie was a long time ago.
When you get stopped at TSA, though, I'll be a first one to tell you my heart's pumping a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But no, I mean, listen, that deal. I had a very good deal with Sasha. I mean, that wasn't even the key card of it. And guys, there is a flip side to it, right? It's all about like leaving some meat on the bone when you're doing deals. Right? You're talking about like cutting your losses. It's also the same thing. The best part that I've got out of this, Shawn, is you're talking about you're in the corner of a show and you got $1,000 card and you might take $850 or $900 for it because you can move that $850, $900 at that show into something else that you'll turn it to $1,200 or $1,300 down the road, right? So yeah, I mean, I probably only had my Trey Red in the deal that I made with Sasha, probably only about $2,750, $2,800, which is cheap. Obviously, you flipped it to you for $3,500 probably the same day. But here's the fun part. I got that card in a deal right like the week before COVID shutdown, and everybody was like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, you name it, a year and a half ago, and I paid $2,400 for that card, a Luka silver, and an SGA silver. Yeah. The three of them for $2,400.
Panic sell, right?
So I mean, I don't mind getting $2,800 for that card.
Well, that's what I wanted to tell.
Never go broke taking a profit.
Yeah.
I wanted to burn everything.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to tell that to our audience. So think about that. We've never had this on our episode. 468 episodes in. Cage, you profited. Sasha wanted the Zard 9, and you added that fluff in. So Sasha was happy, and Joe was happy. So think about that. You have a deal, and this is what I think makes the hobby great, is everybody could leave a deal, and this deal that keeps going, happy. Here's Joe who believes in Trae Young. He's like, this card's fucking sick. You made your money. Sasha got a great deal, and he unloaded some inventory, got cash back in his pocket. So that's what I wanted to take out, because a lot of times we think it's a zero-sum game. This is an example of how it's not. Should we talk a little bit about influencers influencing?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, Shawn, you say, you manage people's portfolios, right? And how are you guys doing on time? Because I want to be respectful.
Okay.
I know
Yeah,
you're good.
We're good.
Cool. I'm really enjoying this, so I hope you guys are as well. But like,
this is horrible. I want to get off right now.
All right, peace.
No one's ever said that to us, so we're good.
Never.
We're doing good. Almost 500 episodes.
We want to go lose our money at the casino.
We want to go donate at the casinos, guys.
Wait.
That's where this sucks,
You're not at a casino. I can see. There's no
The
casino
casino's right
called
behind us.
there.
Spearmint Rhino. That's not a casino.
That's a casino. You come in with a lot of your money, you leave with none. That's not what a casino is.
So here you are, you influence people, you manage their portfolio, you give advice, right? So you are an influencer. And really, I watched a great documentary the other day, or a great episode, and we're all influencers in some sort. If you influence one person, you're an influencer. But then you do see, like you guys mentioned, 20, 30 people kind of control the market. What's your, before we get into the details, what's your macro take on, proper versus improper influencer behavior? What role should an influencer play? I don't know the right way to verbalize the question, right? Because it's so kind of great, but like maybe we could run with it and kind of get to the answer through some dialogue.
Well, it kind of depends on what that influencer's purpose is when they influence, right? Are they supposed to be for entertainment? Are they supposed to be an expert on something? It really depends. I guess how they mean to approach doing what they do. And so, there's this guy named Vegas Dave, and put it this way, I was his best friend for like 20 years. It says something when I never once placed a bet based on his thought or thinking. Like, imagine you being a guy deciding whether or not you're going to invest in his packages. And you just so happen to run into his best friend and say, hey, so how have you done with your best friend's plays? And I go, honestly, I've never used them. Well, without saying much, I've said everything there needs to be said about that. And that's the only issue I have. And I get into a lot of trouble because I'm very blunt. I just kind of speak my mind. And no matter how much the truth hurts to me, a lie always hurts more. So I'll just give you what I believe to be the truth, and you can do with it whatever you want.
What was his intention with making that video of like him burning the fake Jordans?
Followers,
so
views. His view, the only thing he cares about when it comes to like his videos is how many new followers he gets, how many views he gets, because he knows it's a numbers game. So if he has 100 people watch his video, 80 people are going to think he's an asshole. 10 people are going to love him, and 10 are going to be just like whatever. But as long as he gets those 10s that like him because, wow, this guy, he's willing to burn a card, I think that's so cool. If he just gets a few of those, he's happy.
He won.
It's a rare
He does
card.
not care what people think of him.
there aren't that many 1986 Fleer Magic Johnson rookie cards.
Well,
You know, that's what he
guys
said in that
already
most
kind
recent
of-
video, right?
Did he say that?
Yeah, so the Magic
1986
Johnson rookie
Fleer Magic
card,
Johnson?
1986 Fleer Magic Johnson rookie card. I'm like,
Magic
all right,
Johnson.
this dude does not know cards.
Okay, so remember I told you that Dave doesn't really know what he's doing? That right there kind of speaks to his lack of knowledge when he calls it like what he called it.
Magic
Right?
Johnson rookie card.
So this is what pissed me off. In Cage Notes, I don't get upset very often. So yesterday there was this documentary or a graphic for a documentary, and this is kind of how we got put in touch, by the way. Shout out to Card Porn and shout out to people who brought this to our attention. Jeff Wilson, Rob Go, Steve Aoki, and then Vegas Dave. And I don't understand. So like I understand he doesn't care about it, but I don't understand people who apparently have, you know, good values and morals and are like were influenced and want the hobby to grow and are willing to be seen next to somebody like this who is a known scammer. Am I seeing things the wrong way? Am I is that the wrong way to analyze it? Am I overthinking it maybe? You know, I really took offense to that. I said, you know, we have so many people in this hobby who are doing good, who have done right by people. This is the people that you want to portray in a documentary?
Well, let me ask, because what's the known scam? Because I don't know anything about this guy. All I know is there are videos, and he basically is taking what I would consider, if it were a regulated market, a short position. I mean, there are people out there who short things all the time, right? I mean, you know, that Jamie Dimon, what is he, Chase or JP Morgan, whatever, I don't know, one of the big banks. He just came out and said he thinks Bitcoin is worthless. All right, well, that's a pretty counter position while Bitcoin is approaching 60,000. You know, there are people out there who famously shorted Herbalife. There was it Ackman, right, who shorted against Carl Icahn's position, right? And somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose, right? And I guess the only thing, I'm not a gambler, right? I wish I was, because I pick winners. Just watch our What Night show on Sunday.
Well, you know how that works, right? As soon as you actually put your
yeah,
money down.
Yeah, you'll lose. Yeah. Well, you know what it is, because I have a gambling gene, right? So I would just on week where I go 12-4, I lose my lock. The one that I'm most confident on, I don't win.
I'll tell you a story about that later, about Dave and locks and how that works out.
It's harder to pick one game than 12 games.
I guess. But so here's the thing, right? I mean, like I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, if you really believe it, that the card market is going to crash by 2024. It's going to burn and that kind of stuff. If that's what your belief is. And I mean, some of the stuff we talked about today, you know, might support that line of thinking, right? I mean, we talk about how cards have gone from $50 or $100 to thousands of dollars. You know, there's been a heck of a run up. And if, you know, he doesn't say this in his videos, but I mean, you could take the position, I think, that with the amount of people, let's just call this hobby a pyramid. Not a pyramid scheme, let's just call it a pyramid. Those 20 influencers and 20 big-time buyers are sitting at the top of that pyramid, and they're basically controlling the whole thing. Bottom of that pyramid is people who got in the last 18 to 24 months who were flipping base cards, who were getting in there looking for those returns that everybody in that middle of the pyramid, like yourself, has been doing, taking care of their family, you know, flipping, making good money, you name it. And they want to move up to that level, but with PSA closed and with everybody into it and with the profits squeezed and everybody trying to move the bottom line, the price of wax going up, that flipping from that bottom into that middle is just not happening. That bottom is the one where it's the people who just got into it. That's the ones that everybody else has been making their money on. What happens when they disappear? What happens when they're all taking too many L's? What happens when they're buying too high and selling too low and they leave to go flip sneakers or NFTs or whatever the hell else the next thing is going to be?
And that happened during the second quarter of 2021.
Yeah.
The bottom came out and there was a huge correction. I think it has to speak to like intention. So like, for instance, if I know that there's 100,000 people watching what I say on a podcast, whatever, if I know that I'm not an expert in what I'm talking about, but then I speak as an expert, I think, to be honest, I think that person is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Because these people don't know the particulars about who you are, why it is you're speaking about. They just know what comes out of your mouth. And if somebody is given to them as an expert, like if you're with Aoki, them and all these other guys, then people are going to assume, oh, this guy must know stuff about cards because he's with these guys who buy big cards. You have an obligation, I think, you have an obligation to yourself to not get yourself into an ethical dilemma where you're given advice and you really have no right to open your mouth. I mean, when somebody calls the 86 Fleer Magic Johnson card a rookie card, immediately, if you don't shut the fuck up and go sit in the back, I'm going to get upset because you should not even be breathing or opening your mouth when it comes to talking about values of this and that. And he's always saying the sky is falling. You're going to be right. There are going to be dips. The market goes like this. You just don't want to catch it going this. You want to catch it like going that. That's all it is. I mean, people can make money in this. I used to tell people like 10 years ago, you know how you make money in sports cards? You buy the best players in the off season and you sell them right before the season starts. Yep. Or if you want to even you make bigger money but have more risk, you sell during the season. But if you just want to make money, you don't care, you want to beat the stock market, you buy the baseball cards in December and you sell them in March. And you can just do that and you will guaranteed make money. Because why? Most guys don't get hurt at home. 1 out of 1,000 does, but generally speaking, they're not going to hurt their value sitting at home in March. But the price of the card is a lot more than it was in December because people were spending money on presents. I mean, there's all these idiot-proof ways of going about it, but the main reason why people get screwed is because they get greedy. They go in, they don't have enough information to make an educated decision about things that should be, they should be educated. I mean, it's your money. Yeah. But people are treating it like it's play money, and it's not. And I have a huge problem. That's why I told you earlier, I don't go out there and badmouth Dave. I could care less. If he does great in his life, fantastic. Why I have a problem is when he starts fucking over people, if he fucks people over, and I'm privy to it. If someone tells me about a video about him spewing this rhetoric and I have to watch it because I just so happen to be told about it, then I have an issue. And that's when you see my post and I just say what I know to be true and not true about the person or what they're saying. And like I said, anybody who says that 86 Flair Magic Johnson card is a rookie card.
So Cage, I'll ask you.
Probably not even a real card either.
So
you probably didn't buy it.
It's one of those values versus like legal, illegal. I don't know of anything illegal, but I do know from my Covers days. Covers is a sports betting forum, right? And what Dave used to do, or allegedly, was he'd have an email list, right? People used to buy plays. So this is my beef. People used to buy plays. He'd have an email list. Let's say he'd have an email list of 10,000 people. He would send out a lock to 5,000 of them on one team and 5,000 on another team, right? So is that illegal? No, but that's hugely unethical. You're screwing over your neighbor. You're screwing over your customers. You're screwing over your own people. So when I see that, it's really hard because to me, human laws are one thing, but a man is only as good as his word. At the end of the day, is that still a value that holds true? It does to me. Maybe some people it doesn't. So that's my beef. That's where I get a little bit and now we're putting him on in the sports card hobby. It's the same thing as sports betting. Why do we want this to be our face when we have so many other good faces?
Want to hear a little story? So several years ago, Dave flew to Hawaii to meet with me. And he's like, hey, I got this great thing I want you to partner with me and invest in. But I don't want to talk about it on the phone. I want to come see you and we can go have dinner or lunch or something. So he flies to Hawaii, we go eat, and he tells me, okay, I know this bookie. He's got, I want to say it's like 5,000 to 7,000 players. And he has 2 books. He has one where he's got all his guys who don't know what they're doing. And he's got one that has all the sharps, the guys who are really good at it. And so this old man who was the bookie, I guess, reached out to Dave. I think this is the first time this story's ever been told. He reached out to Dave because he wanted to monetize this thing that he, over time, realized when he looked at all the data from his book of bad players. And what he found was, and this great segue with the lock thing, he saw that whenever the numbers might be off because this was several years ago. But it's generally speaking it's pretty accurate when I use these numbers. Whenever he saw 75% or more of the bad players playing a game one way, immediately, without even looking who the hell the other team was, they would fade it. And they would put, I want to say it was like 5 units on taking the points and another 1 or 2 units on money line. And when we looked at the data, I think the data that they reviewed was like a year. It was like enough of a sample size. You were making big money doing that. And it was the kicker that really got you going was that money line play on that other team, because normally when there's a lock for them, more often than not, they're taking favorites. I've noticed it's kind of weird. So when you take the dog and you take him to win outright,
It's
I mean,
juicy.
the return
It's
is
juicy.
I mean, it's insane. And that literally was something that I thought maybe he could like run with because it was based on fact and data. We could prove the theory, right? But that never came to light. I've never seen him offer anything, a package or sell anything to do with that. But then I see him, and I'm not going to go into specifics, but he's giving out these plays and like literally he's doing what you had spoken to. He's putting half on them. And I mean, it's horrifying for me when someone's my best friend and I see them literally make a play, put out a play, and then it doesn't go and they try to erase it from social. Like, that's how you know someone is not too, we call it akamai, is not too keen about what they're doing. You don't just erase something on social media and it's gone. There are people who take screenshots. There's so many ways that people can get that information that you deleted your tweet or whatever. But back when he was doing that, I don't think he realized that when he did that, people could see what he had posted earlier because some person had took a screenshot and then put it out there for everyone to see. But he's done that a lot and it bothers me. And that's the ethical dilemma, right? I mean, how can you look at somebody favorably when they're out here literally taking money from people who can't afford to lose the money?
It looks worse that way too. You're better off just taking the loss.
Yeah.
Looks way worse.
Never trust a guy who never shows his losses, you know?
Right. And so we have that situation. We already know who he is, right? The jury's out. What I didn't appreciate was the people who are seemingly good people, have a strong reputation, who publicly support the hobby, are willing to stand side by side, right? Like at the end of the day, we need to hold each other accountable and say, hey, if you don't have the best interest of the hobby in mind, I can't do a documentary with you, man. I don't want my face and my reputation to be next to you because that's not a good look. Who knows who's going to watch this documentary?
I can explain that to you in like 20 seconds. Do you want to know why they do that?
Because they only care about followers too?
No. And I'm telling you, this is 100% truth. The reason why all these people are standing next to him and literally putting their rep on the line, basically vouching for him because he's with them, is because Dave is one of the most likable people you'll ever meet if you ever meet him in person. And he's not trying to purposely be a dick. He has that thing. That's why let's be real. He's a short little, fat chubby fucker, right? He pulls the smoking hot women. And it's all because of that thing that he emanates as a person. I don't know what you call it. Game, call it pheromones, call it personality, whatever you want to call it. Charisma. He just has a thing when people meet him, they want to be around him. Well, yeah. Okay, so that might have been the case recently, but I've seen him before he really had money, back in before 2010, before the Ravens hit 25-1 on his $10,000. He was doing it back then. But see, anybody who has like me,
was that his big come up? Was that his big money maker?
That was his big come up, correct. And okay, so just by the way, when he said, "Oh, I got my student loan, I put it on black, I won, and I was off to the races gambling," that's a total crock of shit. Total crock of shit. That just sounds good, but that wasn't the case.
Doesn't even sound believable though.
What he would really do with his money, he would go gamble it on games, and sometimes he would win. A bunch of times he was out. Like I remember when we first moved to Vegas, and I think we lived at Spanish Trails. It was like these like little townhomes. And I remember there was a game and he was like, "Man, I really need to win this game or I don't know what I'm going to do." He lost. And I remember I remember it clearly because we were in the living room watching the game and the game was about to end and he knew that he had lost. He didn't say nothing. He just got up, walked to his room, closed the door real quietly, and he went to sleep. Because that was it. I mean, and he's actually had that happen to him several times. Dave realized real quick while he was living here because he would hit in another episode. We can go out, we can talk about all the backstory to all that stuff. I'll give you all the information. I mean, this stuff is worth some money. You guys could probably charge for that episode. But there's a method to his madness, and it's very purposeful. It's very smart. But it really, he's like when he said he picked like some team to win the World Series, He did, but he didn't just pick that one team. And so if there's 8 teams that are, one of them is going to win the World Series. When you play in football, any team can win a game, right? That's what they say, any given Sunday. Because you lose that one game when your quarterback is not feeling well, has a bad game, you're gone. But in a 7-game series, the better team usually wins. Because the inferior team just can't win 4 games before the better guys, right? Well, he would do the same thing with sports betting. And so when he's like, yeah, I picked the Royals to win this year and I picked this other team to win the next, I want 2 years in a row. What he doesn't tell you is that, yeah, he picked the Royals, but he also put a ton of money on 6 other teams or 5 other teams. And as the season was going along and he kind of got the feel for the teams and how they were playing and how they looked like they would turn out, he would just keep stacking more and more and more and more and more money. And there's some other things that went on that I don't want to talk about on video because it's not cool to say those kind of things about your friend or your worst enemy. But
do you think
the only thing I got to say, and you guys just got to take this to heart, is I've never taken his plays and bet them. And that should say something, because don't you think that his best friend would be right there next to him, putting money on those plays if they really truly were what they were presented to be? And I never did.
Are you a gambler?
I am.
Andrew makes some crazy plays. I don't gamble. So
you called me with my little orphan.
I put myself through college playing poker. I would put a lot of money sports betting. I just would never follow what he was doing or his plays per se. I more so that whole thing about fading the public when they go heavy on like a game. That is 1,000% moneymaker.
It happens all the time.
Yeah,
literally I'm a sports bettor, and he's the exact opposite. He's a card guy.
Yeah, I'm a gambler.
In poker you control more, man. I play both. I get way more of a rush with sports betting, but poker you're playing the person, right?
I've probably lost 7 figures on blackjack, so I gamble.
Oh geez, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you
25, 500,000 all in, lose, okay, bye, go home. That's me. So can't even get comps.
We were just at the Encore and I had to pull him away. Literally, we're gonna be 2:30 in the morning after the Red Sox Yankee game in Boston. When Stanton hit the ball out of the park.
Are you guys going to be in Vegas in January? We're flying in for the Mint Collective. Okay, do you know the dates?
If you guys promise to buy me lunch, I'll be here.
Done. Maybe even dinner too, if you play your cards.
I'm here. See, the good thing about playing and losing all my money all these years, I have comps up the yin yang. So I like the 9 days we're here. We got free rooms at the Cosmo and the Palazzo because I lose all my money.
Is it true nobody wins at Aria? Is that true?
I don't know.
Poker?
Anything. I'll go.
Poker room is a bunch of sharks, and so if people casually play poker, the last place they should play is the Bellagio and Aria. I can say that.
Huh. For me, the way I've won in poker is this is my strategy. Friday, Saturday nights, don't drink, stay up all night, and take the money from the drunk people.
So when I lived here, that was my job.
That was my job.
Sunday, I would play poker from like 8 or 9 in the evening to like 7 in the morning, because all the drunk dumb fucks are out there just literally going, "Here's my money."
Literally throwing it away. It was shocking how bad they were.
Fantastic. It put me through school.
Kate, I want to. So what makes our podcast great is we do have this discourse, right? Like there's no right or wrong. You guys are listening. Make your own decisions. Let's talk about NFTs real quick. Where do you guys stand on that, right? Because a lot of the themes that we've talked about, influencers moving markets, is this an asset? Is it not? Where do you guys stand? I see a cheeky smile on both of you. So obviously you have some takes on this.
We just talked about that. So we were in Philly Friday. No,
I'm
Thursday.
from Philly too, Joe, by the way.
We were in Philly Thursday night, and we were talking about NFTs, and I think Ethereum was like under 3,000 at that time. And my one buddy that was in the room was telling us how great NFTs are, how this, how that. No knock at all. But what I was telling Shawn was I think if you believe in NFTs, right? If you are a believer, you want to know what the safest play in the world is? Just buy Ethereum, right? If NFTs go up, right? This is just logical. I would think that everyone would know this. And it was at what, 26, 27, 2,800. We have a messed up skew of perception on money, right? To make 500 or 600 and having to wait 2 or 3 or 4 months, you can just buy a card one day and then go sell it at a show the next day and make $500 or $600 or $700, right? So why park all that money, have to risk $2,800 to do that? Okay. But NFTs, I've never owned one. I've never bought one. Yeah.
I buy them. I gotta admit. So Top Shot.
Top Shot. Yeah.
We know it all too well. We've lost
February,
games
March,
fans from it.
I participate in the drops, and I get my name thrown in the hat, and I buy that stuff. But I mean, there's guys out there, and I think that's more of a space that's influenced by influencers.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very volatile.
But Shawn, what do you think about this? What makes NFTs great? Because the influencers do influence, but you can see what each influencer holds in theory because you can look up their wallet. Yeah. I wanted to add that caveat.
Yeah.
You know what?
But it's just not a tangible. I don't like something that's not tangible.
It. Remember how you talked about cards? And you said, I'm not holding my real estate.
Look at this.
I'm not
this
holding
is
the
it right
title.
here, right?
That's a grandfather way of thinking.
Asset.
That's just older guys.
I'm 25, but my dad is old school. I'm Italian. I kind of grew up in a similar household. We're all yelling at each other, but we're not yelling. We're just talking, right?
Italians always yell. What are you talking about, Joe?
Yeah, we're just talking. We're not yelling, So something that I can physically hold and say, look, this is my Luka Doncic rookie autograph, and this is what it is, and I'm holding it. Right,
Joe, do you use PWCC or Only All or any of those?
I actually don't. I don't use any.
So I know Jesse them decent. I'm one of their top 10% customers.
Yeah, he would know PWCC better than I would.
Those guys are.
Shawn is a PWCCE. We need to get that sticker slabbed. Top 10%.
I once we get off of the podcast, I'll tell you guys a couple of things I know about that grading thingy. But
we have a buddy that's got a lot in their lot.
One thing I heard about NFTs, and this could be a rumor, but there are people who have portfolios, wallets that people can see, and those are their manipulative buys, and then they have their actual buys in a different portfolio that's not in their name. Mm-hmm. And I'm just putting this out there. It happens a lot.
It happens,
and it scares me. And that's, one of the dirty little secrets that I didn't want to talk about because I don't know, what's PC about talking about that. But that's one reason why I won't go out of my lane and do the NFTs because there's so much manipulation going on there. It's freaking scary.
Stick to what you're good at. You're telling me you're going to buy something and then all of a sudden, right? Let's say your account gets hacked. It's gone. Poof. See ya. Right? I mean, that's just scary. And I'm 25. I think that's scary. I don't want to have to log onto my phone to see my portfolio. I want to go to my card case, go to a safe, go somewhere and see what I have right then and there. And if someone wants to buy it, you come, you see me, kind of similar to what you said with the Dave thing. Gave him the cash, gave him the item. It's done. There is no takebacks. There is no, you're going to log into my account, you're going to scam me, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. I mean, that's why you see NFTs. You see these NFTs that are, they're going up, and then some drop. And then all of a sudden you see one NFT that jumped, 500,000%. And there was no talk about it. Well, there was talk about it. You just didn't hear
For all
it.
those people that are watching this, if you don't think that there's all this crazy, eye-opening, shocking, jaw-dropping stuff happening
then you're not
behind
in real
the scenes, then you're not living.
You're not living life.
You're living in some fantasy world.
You're not accepting the fact that there's manipulation.
And that's
everywhere.
why they always tell people, hey, you know what? You get into this hobby, do not have an expectation. Buy things assuming that one day they could be worth nothing. But as long as you enjoy what you buy and you appreciate it for what it is and not what it's worth, then you've already won. And so they should always be cognizant of that because, again, the manipulation, I am privy to it. They talk to me about it, I guess because they trust me and they know I won't say nothing, but I'm standing there and I'm like, dude, I don't know if you think I'm like unethical like you, but that's fucking horrible. I'm thinking to myself like, Jesus Christ, like I wouldn't even, if I was doing it, I wouldn't tell a soul.
Yeah.
Right?
When you diversify and you talk to so many different people and you're getting all these outside perspectives, I always like to say that I like to talk to as many people as possible, right? And I treat everyone with the same respect that I want to be given, right? And you're getting all these life is about taking bits and pieces. Some people are going to like this and some people aren't. Life is about taking a little bit of what Shawn says, a little bit of what I say, a little bit what you say, and you kind of just put
take
it
the little
all
things
into,
that work for you,
right? And figure out, take it with a grain of salt, figure out what you particularly like about that. You're not stealing someone's ideas. You're just hearing other opinions, and then you're putting it in
You're
to your own thing.
assimilating a little piece of it like the Borg.
It happens everything. It's like Jerry West. He's the logo of the NBA. Who copied Jerry West? Pistol Pete copied Jerry West. Magic Johnson copied Pistol Pete. John Stockton, and
Who's
it goes
that?
on and on and on and on.
That's way past my. I mean, I'm not 80 years old, bro.
Pistol
Cage.
Pete was one of my favorite players.
We're
1971
going on 90 minutes.
$1 million basketball player to ever sign.
Gents,
This was fun, man.
You've been more than generous with your time. We've never done kind of like a interview, a conversation like this. I think there's a ton of value. I think this is one of those where people are probably gonna have to go back and listen to twice because there's so many nuggets. Shawn, Joe, I appreciate you guys. We're gonna see you in Vegas. Mint Collective is. Kate, what are the dates?
I promise you, I'll be there.
Just like a couple weeks ahead of time.
I can't be here for 9 days like this trip. I might lose all my cards and all my money before we leave.
I won't allow him to do
There
that.
won't be anything left for me to sell in Dallas. Me being here 9 days, but we'll see how that goes.
That's great. It's gonna be like
Thanks for
two
having
days.
us on, guys.
Yeah,
I like this because it gives us a platform to like really just kind of throw everything in the middle and kind of see and listen and get more perspectives, you know, and try to figure this thing out. Because anybody who says they got to figure it out is lying.
He's gonna be
January,
visiting me in
guys
New York,
listening.
So just so you know, we'll be up in New York quite a bit.
When are you coming? Are you coming this week?
I officially move in December 1st, so we're going to be going to the Philly
I'll be
show
there.
out there.
I'll be there shortly. There.
Yeah, he'll be coming in pretty frequently.
It's crazy to hear you're moving to New York. Most people are moving out of New York. You're moving to New York.
There's a lot of value there, to be honest.
There it is. That's what I'm buying a card in the
Because
off
you
season.
tell me the best market. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in Miami. Now I'm going to be living in New York, but I see so much value there because everyone is leaving and saying, "Oh, there's value elsewhere." I mean, how over so many years that was the best city that, you know, everything's at a discount right now. So I don't know.
Mexico's better. Guarantee it. You'll have way more fun in Tulum.
I can't believe you're actually getting good signal in Mexico. The one thing that I realized when I'm there is I can't watch Netflix because the damn thing's always buffering. I was losing my mind. I'm like, I'm not coming back here just because they have bad freaking like that.
It's true. It's actually true. We were doing a Sunday morning show, and halfway through the show, the municipality, the government, shut down power for the entire day. No lie. Just shut down power. They're like, we'll turn it back on at 5 p.m. This was 10 a.m.
Yeah, not trying to live. I'll visit. I
don't know if I could handle that too well.
It was a lot. I was stressed. I was really upset that whole day. All right, Luka Nation, we love you. We hope you enjoyed this episode. A lot of banter. Shawn, Joe, appreciate you guys. You've been more than generous with your time.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Mint
guys.
Collective, January 28th through 30th in Vegas. We're going to be there hosting a panel with some bigwigs. So you should